whereas we are on the cusp of a brand new year. Today, our episode is talking about healthy boundaries and creating healthy boundaries. How often in life are we um, probably in a conundrum because it's like sometimes if you're very sensitive, you're feeling things way more than the average person. And sometimes you don't know where you end sometimes and somebody else begins. Does that sound like you? I know sometimes that sounds like me. So what I'd like to do today is read a little bit from a chapter that I wrote in my latest book, Healing in Ways You Never Thought Possible by Itty Bitty Books. And we'll talk more about what healthy boundaries and what boundaries are all about. So here we go. Did you know that there are two types of boundaries? The physical ones, which are visible, like a fence around a property, and the non physical, such as the mental or emotional, which are invisible and sometimes intangible. Non physical boundaries, such as emotions, thoughts, and beliefs, are fluid. They wax and wane with an ebb and flow aspect to them. Remember that everything is energy, whether it is visible or invisible. Sometimes the boundaries are difficult to discern, particularly if you are unaware of them. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times we aren't aware of what's happening in our world because sometimes we're not tapped in, tuned in, and um, and in the present moment to realize what's happening. And then, are you sensitive and tend to take on other people's feelings, emotions, or ideas? Do you feel you do not know where your energy ends and where someone else's begins? Do you feel exhausted when you are around certain people and do not know why? If you answered yes to any of those, you're probably what we call an empath, intuitive, or even a highly sensitive person. Because for those type of people, everything is energy. It's almost like it's a second language of sorts. And sometimes we just don't know where there's no definitive boundary as to where we end and something else begins. It kind of gets all meshed and fused together. Sometimes it could be very emotionally draining when this happens because all of a sudden you're fine and then you're feeling like I'm so exhausted when I'm around this person or around this situation. Energetically, it's pulling at you and it's creating some drama, chaos, or probably a little bit of um, confusion as well. So, what we know and what we're talking about next is enmeshed boundaries. And to clarify, you may be unclear where you and where another person begins. We had just talked about that a little bit. This creates confusion, chaos, and drama in your life because you are unconsciously taking on other people's issues and stuff as your own. That's an interesting thing to remember because when we are taking this stuff on as our own, even though it's not, it's almost like we're adding more to the energetic burden of who we are. Um, and oftentimes, that's how our energy field gets really filled with a lot of stuff that isn't even ours, but yet we're processing this stuff through our energy field as if it is ours. I find that extremely exhausting. And I know from my own personal experience being an empath, intuitive, and highly sensitive person, setting personal boundaries, not just the physical, but the energetic ones, are hugely important. Some of the key points to remember: once you realize what is happening, you can change the pattern. Being aware is the first step. You don't know what you know until you know it. Remove yourself from those situations, people, and things that drain your drain you energetically, and observe how you feel to get your energy back. This is another interesting thing that you can experiment with, is that, sometimes you could step into a room and you could just feel what's happening. Or all of a sudden, you're happy and you're doing really well. And then you start walking down the street and you feel this overwhelming sense of all these emotions. You're angry, and then you're sad, and then you're happy, and then you're feeling something that you don't even feel like it's your stuff, but it's affecting you. So one of the best ways and tools that I could give you to assist you with this is the best way to create an energetic boundary is to set one. And this statement that I'm going to share with you will help. Since we are beings of the universe and we have sovereign rights to be here and also to stand in our power, what's important is nothing is allowed to come into our energy field unless we allow it. And I'm going to repeat that. Nothing is allowed to come into your energy field or your space unless you allow it. By the laws of the universe, nothing can interfere with our free will unless we allow it. Now, oftentimes we're allowing things to happen on an unconscious level versus a conscious level. So once you are aware that something is coming from unconsciousness to consciousness, this is where we could do something about it. So this little thing to recite, I swear by this because it's helped me immensely and it's helped a lot of my clients as well. With remembering that nothing can come into your energy field unless you allow it, by stating the following statement out loud or to yourself. If this is not my energy, by the laws of the universe, it must leave immediately. What you may experience after saying that is that you might feel like something is lifted off of you. You may feel as if you are going into calmness and serenity. And you may also feel that maybe nothing is happening, but trust me, something is. Once again, that statement is, if this is not my energy, by the laws of the universe, it must leave my space immediately. And remember, you have free will on earth and nothing can interfere with it unless you allow it. Often we allow things in our energy field consciously as well as unconsciously. Reciting the phrase above will shift your space, allowing you to have more freedom, discernment, and feel re-energized. So what are you going to do to take your power back and create more harmonious and energetically healthy boundaries? I invite you to do this for yourself. Experiment with it. Remember, we all have choices, believe it or not. And when you are aware of things that are happening in your space, you can make a different choice and take back your power and also set those good boundaries. Now, we're in the midst of the holiday season, so there is a lot of stuff happening for a lot of people, and somehow and sometimes we are put into situations where our boundaries are being tested. And just to remember, if you're not feeling 100% yes on something to consider. Maybe it's time to set a boundary. If you're not choosing to do something, but you're doing something out of obligation, or later you're doing it and then you're resentful of it, it's time to change that. I invite you to be brave and take that step and make those changes that you need to do. So they're going to wrap up for now. And thanks so much for listening and attending. And I invite you to stay tuned to another episode of Healing in Ways You Never Thought Possible with Dr. Dolores Fazzino. And next week, we're going to be talking about making peace with uncertainty and fear. So I'm signing off for now and wishing you all a happy new year. Take care.